Imagine standing on a frozen lake in total darkness. The ice beneath your feet groans like a living thing, deep resonant sounds that travel through your bones. One wrong step and you plunge into water so cold your heart could stop in seconds. Your lungs would seize before you could scream. Now imagine you have no fishing rod, no metal hooks, no modern tools of any kind. Just stone, bone, and the knowledge passed down through countless generations. This is how Ice Age people caught fish under solid ice, and it is far more ingenious than you might expect. 20,000 years ago, during the peak of the last Ice Age, massive glaciers covered much of the northern hemisphere. These ice sheets stretched for thousands of miles, some reaching heights taller than modern skyscrapers. Winters stretched for 8 or 9 months. The sun barely rose above the horizon for weeks at a time, casting only a dim twilight glow across endless white landscapes. Temperatures plunged to levels that would freeze exposed skin in minutes. Food was scarce. Every calorie counted. A single failed hunt could mean death for an entire family. And yet, humans not only survived but thrived. They adapted in ways that still astonish researchers today. Here is the part that most people get wrong about Ice Age survival. They imagine someone cutting a hole in the ice, dropping a line, and waiting. That approach would get you killed. The real enemies were not just the cold or the difficulty of catching fish. The real enemies were time, energy loss, and the hidden dangers lurking beneath seemingly solid ice. Every moment spent motionless on frozen water drained precious body heat. Every wasted effort consumed calories that might never be replaced. Let me take you through exactly how they did it, step by step. First, you need to understand why location matters more than anything else. You cannot just walk onto any frozen lake and start working. The ice varies in thickness depending on currents, depth, and water movement. Near inlets where streams feed into a lake, the ice is often thinner and more dangerous. Near outlets where water flows away, the same problem exists. Moving water prevents ice from forming properly. Even in the coldest weather, these spots remain treacherous. So how do you find safe ice with fish beneath it? You read the landscape. You look for areas where the lake is calm and deep. You study the shoreline for clues about water flow. You check for animal tracks. If wolves or foxes have been walking across a particular section, it is likely thick enough to support your weight. If you see open water anywhere nearby, stay away from that area entirely. The color of ice tells stories too. Clear blue ice is generally strongest. White or cloudy ice contains air bubbles and may be weaker. Dark patches suggest thin spots where water shows through. Here is where most people would fail. Finding fish is not just about finding safe ice. Fish in winter congregate in specific locations. They seek out the deepest parts of the lake where water stays slightly warmer. They gather near underwater structures, fallen trees, rock formations, anything that provides shelter and oxygen. You learn these patterns by watching, by remembering where you caught fish in previous years, by passing knowledge from parent to child across generations. This was not guesswork. This was science developed over thousands of years of careful observation. Once you find the right location, you face the next challenge. The cold itself becomes your enemy. You cannot simply stand on open ice and work for hours. The wind will drain your body heat faster than you can replace it. Your fingers will grow numb. Your movements will become clumsy. Mistakes will follow. In those conditions, a simple error could cascade into catastrophe. This is why creating a microclimate was essential. Ice Age people built simple windbreaks from stacked snow or animal hides stretched over wooden frames. Even a small barrier blocking the wind makes an enormous difference. They laid down insulating materials on the ice surface, layers of pine boughs or dried grasses or animal furs, anything to prevent their bodies from losing heat directly into the frozen lake beneath them. Some groups positioned these shelters to catch whatever weak sunlight appeared, creating pockets of relative warmth in a frozen world. Now comes the part that sounds simple but requires incredible patience: making the hole. You have no metal saw, no power drill, no modern ice auger. What you have is a heavy stone shaped into a crude chopping tool and sharpened bones that can scrape and chip. The process is exhausting. You strike the ice surface repeatedly, breaking off small chunks with each blow. Then you scrape away the debris. Then you strike again. The sound echoes across the frozen lake, a rhythmic percussion that becomes almost meditative. If you do this wrong, you waste hours and calories you cannot afford to lose. The secret is rhythm. You find a pace you can maintain without overheating. This is crucial. If you work too hard and begin to sweat, that moisture will freeze against your skin. Wet clothing in extreme cold can kill you faster than almost anything else. You learn to work in controlled bursts, resting before exhaustion sets in, keeping your body in a narrow band between too cold and too hot. A skilled person working with stone tools might take an hour or more to cut through thick ice. That represents a significant investment of energy. This is why location matters so much. You do not waste that effort on a spot where fish are unlikely to appear. Every hole represented a calculated gamble based on accumulated knowledge. Once the hole is open, a new problem emerges. The ice begins to refreeze almost immediately. In severe cold, a thin layer can form on the water surface within minutes. If you let that layer thicken, you have to start breaking ice all over again. All that work, all those calories, wasted. Here is the ingenious solution. You use heat, but not in the way you might expect. A large fire on the ice would be dangerous and counterproductive. The heat would melt ice unevenly, potentially creating weak spots. It would scare away fish with light and vibration. The smoke would make breathing difficult in enclosed windbreaks. Instead, they used small amounts of carefully controlled heat. Embers from a fire burning nearby. Stones heated in that fire and placed near the edge of the hole. Just enough warmth to keep the water surface from freezing solid, but not so much that it disturbs the delicate balance beneath. This required constant attention. Someone always watched the hole, skimming away thin ice before it could thicken, adjusting stones as they cooled. Now you have an open hole in thick ice. You have a sheltered spot protected from the wind. Your hands are still functional. The real work begins. There were several methods for actually catching fish, and each required specialized knowledge developed over generations. The first method used what we call a gorge hook. This is not a curved hook like modern fishing equipment. A gorge is a straight piece of bone or wood, sharpened at both ends, with a line tied around the middle. You cover it with bait, perhaps insects collected from beneath tree bark or scraps of meat from a previous hunt. The fish swallows the gorge along with the bait. When you pull the line, the gorge turns sideways and catches inside the fish. The line itself was made from plant fibers twisted together or from sinew taken from animal tendons. These materials are remarkably strong when properly prepared. The process of making such a line could take days of careful work, twisting and testing until the cord could bear significant weight. The key is keeping them dry. Wet plant fiber freezes stiff and becomes useless. Experienced fishers kept their lines inside their clothing, warmed by body heat, until the moment of use. The second method was more direct. Spearing. You lie on your belly beside the hole, blocking the light with your body and any available hides. You peer down into the water. In the dim light filtering through the ice, you watch for movement. When a fish swims close enough, you strike with a bone-tipped spear. This requires incredible patience. Fish sense vibration through water. If you shift your weight, if you move suddenly, if you let your shadow fall across the hole, they vanish into the depths. You must become perfectly still. Your breathing slows. Time stretches. Minutes feel like hours. Then, in a single explosive motion, you strike. The spear tip was often designed to detach from the shaft but remain attached by a cord. This allowed the fish to thrash without breaking the whole spear while the barb tip stayed embedded. You could then draw the fish up through the hole using the cord. This toggling harpoon design represents sophisticated engineering, perfected over countless generations of trial and error. Here is a detail that reveals their cleverness. They understood light. Ice transmits light in strange ways. On a bright day, fish below can see silhouettes above them. A dark shape moving against the glowing ice surface would send them fleeing. But if you position your body correctly, using hides or snow to block light around the hole, you create a dark spot that fish might investigate out of curiosity. You turn their instincts against them. Some groups use torchlight at night, holding burning sticks near the hole. Fish are attracted to light in darkness. They would swim toward the glow, emerging from the depths like moths to flame, and the spear would be waiting. Another method involved traps placed before the lake froze. In autumn, you might build a weir in shallow water near the shore. A weir is a fence of wooden stakes woven with branches that guides fish into a confined area. Once ice formed over it, you could cut a hole directly above the trap and harvest fish throughout the winter. The trapped fish had nowhere to flee. This required planning that spanned seasons. You had to think months ahead and remember locations from year to year. This level of foresight tells us something profound about Ice Age intelligence. These were not simple people reacting to immediate needs. They were strategic thinkers planning for futures they could only imagine. Throughout all methods, cooperation was essential. One person could not do everything alone. While one worked the hole, another maintained the fire and heated stones. A third might watch ice conditions, ready to help if someone broke through. Communication happened through gestures and whispers, preserving the silence that kept fish calm. Children learned by observing. They started with small tasks, gathering firewood or preparing plant fibers. As they grew, they took on more responsibility. By adulthood, they possessed decades of accumulated knowledge. They had watched their elders fail and succeed. They understood why each step mattered. Let me share fatal mistakes that Ice Age people learned to avoid. Never trust ice near moving water. The current prevents proper freezing. Never work so hard that you sweat. Wet clothes are a death sentence. Never let the hole refreeze beyond a thin skim. Never make noise or let shadows fall across the water. Never use materials that absorb water for critical tasks. These were not primitive people with inferior tools. They were sophisticated humans applying generations of refined knowledge to extreme survival challenges. They understood how water moves, which materials work in cold, how animals behave, and how to manage body heat efficiently. All this knowledge existed only in human minds and traditions. It could not be written down. It had to be demonstrated and remembered and passed along through patient teaching. When you catch a fish from beneath winter ice using only stone, bone, and plant fiber, you hold proof of human ingenuity. You hold evidence that our ancestors were every bit as clever as we are today. If this fascinated you, hit the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss a video. Comment below telling me what Ice Age topic you want explored next. Share this with someone who loves survival stories or ancient history. Your support makes these explorations possible.